prayers.
Yeah, well deserved. That's going to be a key part of the conversation is the loss of Tree and Polito, how it impacted.
Yes, definitely.
I think we might be good now.
Yes, it's live. Yes, it's live. Yeah.
All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We're back once again. This is episode 18 of the Bayshore Christian Alumni Podcast. And we have a very special guest tonight, a man who is known as a gentleman, a scholar, and who is loved by all, and one of the great basketball coaches in Hillsborough County, who not only led Bayshore after the Valdez era to the Final Four, but did it again with another school. That's how accomplished and talented he is as a coach. My personal friend, always spent the night at his house, and his wife took care of me. And so we're very thankful to have Coach Sam Lanier with us tonight. Sam, thanks for being here.
Thank you very much, Steve, for having me.
Chris usually gives the disclaimer. Chris has been missing a lot of episodes. He's been moving, a lot of work responsibilities, he's been doing a lot of travel, so he's not with us tonight, and we may not see him for a few more weeks with his travel. But he usually gives a disclaimer, and that is everything that we share here is not related to the school today. These are just stories about our history and how great they were. And so I want to give that disclaimer. Coach, I'm going to start right out of the gate with Robinson High School, because there's a famous story. You played for, Herman Valdez himself, the legend.
Yeah.
And there's a famous story where there's one jersey left and there's two players that got to fight. So why don't you start with that one?
Well, I will start a little earlier. My sophomore year, we went to Monroe. When I got to Robinson, my sophomore year, the varsity team was one of the best They had one of the best teams in the state. You had Jerry Henry, Alvin Holder. You had Herbert Allen, who was Player of the Year in Hillsborough County. You had just great players. I don't want to omit anyone, but they were an awesome team. Willie Garland. They were an awesome team, and they went all the way to the state final, and they played Orlando Evans, who had Darryl Dawkins as their center, who we all know went on to play in the NBA and had a great career.
Chocolate Thunder.
Yes. That's who they played in the state final. They beat a great team in Pensacola, and that was back when the state finals was in Jacksonville. And so it was a big deal. It was a big deal in the school, and those guys had went to Florida State camp the summer before and competed with a lot of great teams. And that was what we saw. That was what we saw as young players coming in. We saw the commitment of those guys. We saw those guys in the hallway. We saw those guys out of season playing on outdoor courts when we couldn't get in the gym. We saw those guys in open gym, playing and working and sweating and, that type of thing. So they really put a commitment into being great. And Coach let them know, I think at the beginning of the year, you can see throughout the way they played, that the goal was to get to the state finals, to get to the championship. And that's how they played. They played hard. They played well together. And that's what we saw. That was like the blueprint of what everybody should do who comes to this school, who wants to be in this program. Wasn't a whole lot of kids getting in trouble, that type of thing. They were completely 100% committed, to having a great team and a great season. And they did. I think they ended up 24-4, and they were state runner-up. And then my junior year, that was when the incident happened.
Was any of the fear of not getting in trouble related to Coach Valdez?
Yes, it was. And, when you're first coming in, you hear rumors of, the team meetings and, people having to go through certain situations to make sure that they wouldn't make academic mistakes on a week-to-week basis. And so, all of those things happened. And it was also copied, by the JV program. Coach always wanted the JV team and the players to also do well in the classroom, stay out of trouble. And, you kind of go into it that knowing that, hey, this is the type of program I'm going to be in. I got to, get myself together. I got to get myself together physically, mentally, and, make a total commitment to the team. And then if you weren't completely committed, you walked in the gym and there were 60, 70 guys, trying out for spots. So, once I made the JV team, I wasn't very quick. I wasn't very athletic. I always could shoot pretty good. But the junior year, you had a lot of kids coming back after the Final Four team. You had guys that were waiting their turn, from the previous year. And the team was so great. They went 23-2. That was my junior year. And, I still had to remain on JV. And then we get to the story where I think we were getting to, it was like toward the middle of the season. And there was another guy who was a sophomore who they thought was as good as me. And they felt that he deserved to be in the uniform. So we had to play one-on-one. We had to play one-on-one for that. And I was not.
Who was the,
it was after practice. Huh?
Right. Was there like an assistant coach who was saying that dude's better than Sam, and Herman saying, no, Sam's going to win this one-on-one? Like, what was the dynamic like?
Well, it was after practice. I think they called us over and they said that, we're not sure who should be, which one of you should be on the dress list. And so I had been on the dress list since the beginning of the season. And I had been on the dress list since the beginning. I did not dress for a game. So I think I changed coaches. I had Tom Mosca my sophomore year. And then my junior year, Vic Dixon was the JV coach at that time. And I think he had to believe that juniors shouldn't be on JV. That's what I think. I was never told that. But I think him and coach talked about it. And I think that they felt that, let the best man win on the floor. You think this sophomore should be playing. I think Sam should get an opportunity because he's been in this program. And that's what happened. I wasn't going to let this guy coming in the program take my spot, Right. So, you had that competition going in. You had that competition in the tryouts. You had that competition in practice. There were competitive games going on, not just games on the clock, but there were other defensive competitive games that I know you were a part of. And it was competition was a major part of what was going on. Effort always had to be there. Even when you made a mistake, there still had to be great effort. And so those were some of the things that we saw that we wanted to be a part of. And even in my senior year, I didn't want to get into that situation again, because again, I know it's going to be these kids in the gym again, trying out. And so I lost 15 pounds. I lost 15 pounds over the summer. I went out, Booker T. Washington. I would run, jog, shoot, ball handle. And, I thinned out some, and that was maybe to move a lot better, maybe not as well as some of the other kids that played before me, because we also had another great team then. We went 20-5. We lost to, almost counted that. We were ranked preseason. The previous two teams were top 10. And then my senior year, we were ranked preseason number 2. And then we played Tampa Bay Tech. That was the first game of the season. And they had a great team coming back like us. So, you're thinking that, hey, we're going to have to go over here. We're going to have to play well. And so we ended up losing by 2 points. We lost 3 games that year by 2 points. Okay. So that was one of the ones. And then after we lost that game, and I shared this with Coach before, he asked me about some of my memories of the past. And I told him I remember losing in that Tampa Bay Tech game and us running as harder than I've ever seen anyone run my previous 2 years in the program. Because he was really trying to send a message that what the previous teams did don't apply to you. You're going to have to come out here. You're going to have to earn respect. You're going to have to play hard every night because these other teams want a piece of you. And so we learned that lesson. We went off about 10 straight before we ended up, I think we lost in the Christmas tournament. And I think we won the Christmas tournament my senior year. We lost twice to Brandon by 2 at their place. And some people say it was one of the best games they ever saw was the Brandon Robinson game.
Is that the, first off, let me say, you look great. I mean, the audience would know you look 25 years old. I need your secret, whatever you're buying or using, I need to know, the drugs, whatever it is. Is that the game where the Jan Bennett hoax, where they sent out the student Paul Ferlita to throw the voodoo mist? on Coach Valdez?
Yes, that was the game. That was
Okay,
the
okay.
game. And that was that. I think that was before the game where, after
Right.
warm up, somebody came out there and was doing some sort of dance or whatever they were doing. So
It was reported in the
it was
Tampa
kind of
Tribune. It was reported in the Tribune. The guy's name is Paul Ferlita. I mean, he's a Tampa name. He's worked in the county.
right. Yeah.
It was reported that Jan Bennett, that coach would pray before the game with the team. And Jan
Yes.
Bennett figured, well, if they're going to do some Christian stuff, I'm going to do some
Yeah.
voodoo stuff. And they sent
Right.
him out
Right.
in this. And it's a famous story. And most people think
Yeah.
that you guys, it was like tied or would have gone to overtime, that the last second shot did not beat the buzzer. I think it was shot by David Galloway, who played football
Yes.
in Florida,
Yes.
NFL. But that's what everybody
Yes.
remembers in the Tribune article.
Right. Right. They went over to the scores table, and it was like this long. It took the longest time, and we were sitting. We were sitting right there, and we really didn't feel like the kid got the ball off in time before the buzzer. But you couldn't hear it. The place was packed. There was over 2,200, 2,300 people in the building. And so it was an exciting time, in Hillsborough County. There were, every night you had to work. We had games where, we didn't have trouble with East Bay, and we didn't have trouble with a couple of other teams, no disrespect. But, you had to really work. The Tech, the Jeffersons, Hillsborough, Lato really plant. You had to really work, to win these games. We had Jimmy Martin was a starting point guard on our team. Jimmy Martin got a scholarship, played at Jacksonville University. Jimmy came out of Jacksonville University. He went into coaching. He's a head coach at Jacksonville Providence Christian, even to this day. He's been there over 20 years, I believe. He's won, I think, 4 or 5 state titles.
Yeah, they're really good.
Yeah, really good guy. And I can't remember the guy's name. The guy named from Duke. He used to play at Duke. I hate to say his name. He was the one that was tripping guys. He was the guy that was, I can't remember. He plays guard. He's in the NBA. He's a nice player. I can't remember his name. He played for Jimmy Martin. He made it all the way to the NBA, and he had a lot of other guys go to college. And he has a really good program up there in Jacksonville. And I was able to visit with him last year. That was before COVID. And we had a luncheon with some of the guys, and he came down, and we had a good lunch, and it was about 7 or 8 of us between Robinson. Most of us were Robinson. So we had lunch, and really did well for himself. We had the late Clarence James, who was also a great player. He was all conference. I think he was either All-State or honorable mention All-State. Played really well. He signed, he went to Tulane. We had our other guard was Roosevelt Brown. Roosevelt went to Peru State University on a football scholarship because our football team was incredible. I think we were 10-2 that year. We were in the state playoffs. And so there were a lot of athletes at Robinson at that time. Obviously, you have less schools, but there were a lot of kids that came to Robinson that really loved sports and really wanted to win. So
as we've said many times on this show, and forgive me for interrupting. Yeah, Coach Valdez has mentioned as well, the Robinson athletic program was top of the line in the 70s and early 80s, and it's sort of very interesting, all of this nexus between Robinson and Bayshore, thanks to Coach Valdez and you coming over, and then of course the connection with Plant. I got a couple of comments on Facebook I want to share with you already. First off, John Harville says to make sure to tell you how much he appreciates everything you did for us. You're a class act. And Tree White sends a heart with a smiley face to you.
Okay.
So those are the first 2 comments tonight. I want to move from Robinson. Robinson, of course, is your formative years as a young man. And as you just described, the unparalleled basketball talent and program that you came out of at Robinson. The next move that I remember, of course, is you as an assistant coach at Bayshore. Tell us the interim. How do you go from high school? I know you went to USF.
Yeah.
and then you go to coach under Coach Valdez at Bayshore. How did all that happen?
Well, what happened, my first year in Hillsborough County school system as a physical education teacher, I taught at Foster Elementary.
What year was that?
That was 81 to 82. Okay. I was at Foster for 6 years, but 81 to 82, I didn't coach, okay? And then 82, 83, that was the first year that Coach Valdez moved from Robinson over to Bayshore. And so one afternoon, I got a phone call at home because he would stay in touch with us. He still had our numbers and so forth. So he called me at home and he said that he was starting a program at Bayshore, and I had never heard of Bayshore Christian at that time. And he was saying it was a school on MacDill Avenue, and he was starting a basketball program over there. And so he wanted to know if I want to be his JV coach. And I actually tried to talk him out of it. I told him, I said I've never coached before. This is breaking news. I told him, I said I've never coached before, and I personally didn't think I was ready, because there's a major difference between playing the game and teaching the game. Okay, and so I didn't. Even though I wrote a philosophy on coaching when I was in college, because they encourage guys to not only teach physical education, but if you did want to go into coaching, they wanted you to think about that. So, we all had to write a paper about that. And one of my idols and people that I really respected outside of Coach Valdez was Dean Smith. And so, I wrote a little bit about Dean Smith and, some of the things that I saw when I played, and how players should conduct themselves. So that's what I kind of had to rely on first. But he was the guy that taught you. He taught you how to play. He taught you how to coach. He taught you how to practice. And basically when you're going in there, it's like you're in a master class. Basically, you're seeing how guys go do drills. They do them hard. Okay, if they don't do them hard, they might have to run. You see you see guys that need to shoot free throws with a purpose, because at the end of practice, you're going to be called upon, if he notices that you're not shooting them with a purpose, to make some that you need to make as in game situation, or your team might be running. So, then you had the game preparations, what he said before the game, what he said during the game, what he said after the game. He prayed with us before games. He had us over to his house. There were a lot of things that we learned. He shared the word of God with us. There were a lot of things that were done that you watch and you observe, and you learn how you begin to develop in where you marry those things into your own personality, and what you think works best for you and best for your talent. So there was a lot that Coach did. Coach did a lot of things in practice, time and score, all the stuff you learn, right. Press offense. You couldn't shoot under a minute if you got possession of the ball. If you shot the ball before then, you were coming out. And he really took possessions seriously. At certain times during the game. Really, it was every quarter. Inside of a minute, you weren't supposed to shoot. And you were kind of forced to know time and score if you wanted to play. Because if you didn't know time and score, if you didn't know game situations, then you probably weren't gonna get the minutes that you thought you might have deserved. And so,
do coaches,
I learned that over.
Do coaches, forgive me for interrupting again, do coaches do that today? I see I'm not talking, the good basketball games you watch of college, Carolina, Duke, some of the great coaches, you can see game management. But at the high school level, maybe because it's travel ball's influence, at the high school level, do you see that level of teaching or game management that maybe from a bygone era occurred so much more?
Well, with the great programs, Ronaldo Garcia had a great program at Sickles before he moved on to Berkeley. Leroy Long, Jimmy Smith. I saw Derek on your program a few weeks ago. Those are the coaches, Jan Bennett, those are the coaches that you could see that they took those things seriously. They use their timeout wisely. How many times did coach tell us to call a timeout under the basket, and that there were 4 to 6 possessions that maybe we could get a bucket from? You know, those were the things, those were the details that you learn to not overlook, because that's how you went from being good to great. And if you just listened and soaked it in, most of us at that time, Steve, most of us who played, you included, we would block out parents. We would block out parents. We did not listen to parents during the game. We didn't listen to fans during the game. You know, guys always try to get you distracted and say things, but we didn't listen to any of that, because we wanted him to feel confident enough to leave us on the floor. So I think there's a big difference between really learning all of those things. The great teams have people that learn all those things. Dean Smith had to huddle at the free throw line. Dean Smith utilized all those timeouts. He would save his timeouts. I saw coach save his timeouts. You know, there were things that you saw great teams do, and that's why you know, he was great, and maybe some other guys are not as great, because they're not focusing on some of those little details, some of those little things.
That's so good. That's so good to hear.
Mm-hmm.
I got another Facebook post before we keep going from Mike Blocker. Sam wasn't just a great coach, he was a fan of each of us. Some of my fondest memories are his comments during the game, such as nice pass, always praising your accomplishments. So, yeah, you know, all of them showing great love and memories of you, their time with you. So that's really good to hear. I
really appreciate those guys.
Yeah,
go ahead. I really appreciate those guys and those comments. Those guys really worked hard, and they were all the time respectful, and that actually helps you be a better team when you're willing to learn. You want to be coached.
Oh, absolutely. My memories of you, Coach, are as a player, not the time I spent as an assistant, but as a player, was just having the utmost respect for you as a great man. Like we all looked up to you. So it's such an honor to be on here with you. So thank you. I wanted to ask, so Coach Valdez makes the call. You've never coached before, and you've never even heard of Bayshore Christian.
No.
But you make the move.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Was it prayer? Was it Coach Valdez himself? What was the decision process like?
Well, it was a little bit of those things. I felt that he wouldn't have called me if he didn't think I could do the job. So his confidence in me also made me want to take the job. And then secondly, I love the game. I learned a lot from him, even though I didn't play as much as other kids. You do learn a lot when you're listening to what is being said, and you were held accountable in practice, no matter if you were with the first team, second team, or third team. If you didn't know motion offense, if you didn't know 2 down, if you didn't know 2 up, if you didn't know what you were supposed to do, then you might not play. And, you know, everybody I played with, they had strengths and weaknesses, but one of their weaknesses was not knowledge of the game or knowledge of the system that he was trying to teach us. So when he made that call, I said, I thought that he would teach me or show me what I needed to know. And, you know, you even watch how they handle problems. You watch how they handle injuries. You know, there's a lot of things. He prepared all of us, because if somebody got hurt, somebody else might have to step in and play. And so he would change lineups in practice. He would, obviously you had starters, but I know you played there. He would change lineups in practice, and you had the same situations as the guys that had the most minutes. And so I hadn't been around, I mean, he was the only high school coach I played for, but you could see the other good teams. Dean Smith used to sub 5 guys out in the first half and put 5 guys in. And I hadn't seen that, but, you know, coach didn't do that, but he would make maybe 2 or 3 at the time. Right. Or if you were really bad, he would take all 5 of you out just for a minute or 2 until until you got yourself together, like, oh, I might not play. Right. So those were the things you learn over time. And then I felt comfortable over time. My first couple years, I wasn't comfortable with certain situations in the game because you're trying to make sure your kids react to changes that are made in timeouts. You're trying to make sure your kids understand why you're doing, what you're trying to do. So those are the things you kind of have to learn from experience, just like, any other job. Over time, you start to learn some of those things. And, he was you even learn how to chew a guy out sometimes. Coach knew he had guys that he could chew out and they could take it. And he had other guys that he may not chew out as much, that the bench did most of the talking. So he didn't want to get you out of the mindset of playing well or being at your very best. So those are the things you kind of learn over time.
What and those are great points and great words. What do you recall? John Arville told me to ask this question, and it was on a previous podcast. The story. Do you recall the Florida Gator camp and the infamous Coach Dibble, Chris Patterson situation?
I do remember that, not vividly, but I do remember. I was surprised, to be honest with you. I was surprised, and I think at the time, I think Chris was teasing him, and I think it was like after a loss. I mean, we're up here at this camp. We're playing some of the best teams in the state. You're playing Miami. You're playing Jacksonville teams. You're playing Orlando teams. You're playing teams that are, really serious about basketball. I don't think we had a large number of kids go to the camp. I think we maybe 8 or so. I don't remember the exact number, but we were not winning all of the games and we were getting killed a lot of the time. And so Dibble wasn't in the mood. He did not want to come up to Florida Gator camp, embarrass, the school, embarrass himself as a coach. And he wasn't having it. He was not having it. I think we had lost maybe 2 or 3 in a row. I don't remember, but Chris was, kind of joking around and saying things, and he was trying to kind of get him to stop. And then he kept doing it. And then next thing you know, they get together. and I was shocked because I was like, wow, I've never seen Dibble this angry. And I've known Dibble for years, forever. He was at my wedding.
Sure.
And sure. I never saw him get that angry, even when he was coaching. And so it was a little bit of a surprise. And I just tried to calm him down and say, hey, Tom, I think he's had enough. I think I said something to that effect.
That's exactly how John described it.
Yeah. He didn't strike him or anything like that, but he looked like he was getting to that level. And, I love him. I didn't think, I wasn't like overly scared that something was going to happen, but I didn't think Chris was going to stop talking.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And so that was when my level of concern, because, I think Chris got a little upset once he, got with him. And so I was like, oh man, this is really going left. So, but they worked it out.
Yeah.
They worked it out. Everybody worked it out. I think the guys that were there were also kind of shocked by the situation. So, you look back on it and it was really funny. Okay. Yeah. I know horrible that those guys.
In hindsight.
Yeah. But at the time, it's like, oh man, how are we going to finish the rest of the week? How are we going to, this might happen again. Is he going to stop talking? Are we going to start winning some games? What's going to happen? So that was like the tension after the situation. Where's it going to go from here? So
it's fun. And you just mentioned also Dibble was in your wedding. You and Coach Dibble were in my wedding. We were the whole relationship of all of this brotherhood goes back so many decades, and that's really neat. And it's really fun. That story is a really funny, historic Bayshore story. Before we get to your years coaching, right now we've talked about Robinson in high school. We've talked about the experience with Coach Valdez calling you and offering you the job to come coach with him. So we're still in the 80s. I wanted to ask you if there was anyone that you recall from Bayshore's staff, teachers or administrative staff that you remember fondly, or a moment with them. Maybe they welcomed you or they were in the crowd supporting. the kids and your coaching? What do you remember about not the players necessarily, but the adults at Bayshore?
Well, everybody who came to the games, the blockers, Jojo Santiago's family was always enthusiastic. Um, um, the Pippins were, very, very supportive. Vic Noriega. I think Coach was the athletic director for a good, for a while. David Volpe became athletic director. He was really supportive. That was during the years that I was head coach. He coached with us, and he was very supportive. So everybody was on board with how the guys played, how the guys got along, and it was a pretty supportive situation. They all respected Coach. Coach, a lot of people did things, to help the program wherever they could. All the things that Coach did, the phone calls that were made, the people, Mr. Glickman. I mean, there were quite a few people. I couldn't name them all, but there were a lot of people that were really supportive in Bayshore history. But those are the ones that kind of stick out of my mind. I know later on I'll probably have a few more things come to my mind, but those were the people that really cared about Bayshore basketball and did whatever they could to help Bayshore basketball be successful.
Very good. So so we've covered, like we said, Robinson. You're now at Bayshore. Coach Valdez, who we both played for, is a legendary, iconic figure in Hillsborough County. And the success he had towards the end of the 80s and 90s was really unprecedented. 34-win seasons, multiple Final Fours, and you had the back-to-back Final Fours with Showtime, Derek Smith and Andrick and Jonathan Johnson. And then you had the Tree White, Jonathan Johnson, Ernie, Roderick, Fielder, Bo Heinley, 94 Final Four team. Really, that's a really interesting team to me, because it was always, like, to me, the first 3-point shooting team. Today, everything is Golden State, Curry, get up threes, positionless basketball. That was like the first team that I can remember that relied upon a perimeter scorer like that. Jonathan Johnson, who ended up being Florida's all-time, at the time, leading three-point. So I want you to comment on that last season, and then tell us about Coach Valdez decides to hang him up, and he chooses you as his successor at Bayshore Christian. Share those thoughts with us.
Well, after that year, we had gone to the Final Four 3 years in a row. I think that was 91, 92, 93.
Well, we missed 92 in a
we missed 92.
Upset loss to Braden and Christian. We were 34-1. Three out of 4 years.
Yes. And so after we lost to Malone, I think that was in, that was when they were a juggernaut in Northern Florida. They were really formidable, even though they were smaller than a lot of the teams. They were really formidable. They really had a good program. I think John Ellerby was their coach at the time, and they had a really good program. And then, so at the end of that game, Coach brought everybody together, and I think it was right after that game, I think he told them that this was going to be his last year coaching. And I think I remember that, one of the things that he really was unhappy about was the losing. And, we weren't losing very much, but he really was struggling with being so close in these situations to winning a state championship, and all the time and effort you put into it. And, I definitely can relate to that, because he was the guy that gave us the DNA to begin with. And so, you're saying to the kids that, you think they're good enough to achieve this goal, but then they don't reach it. It's disappointing, and it's kind of tough. He probably will or won't say this, but, you're probably questioning if there was something you could have done, to get them across the finish line. Maybe there was something I could have done in this quarter or that quarter or whatever. But those are things where, you kind of self-examine. And I know he was, not happy with the way the year ended. And he felt like, he needed to step away. And so he told everybody. And so I don't quite remember. I spoke with him. It was later on. It wasn't like right away. Later on, and I think we were in the library now. I think he told me that had spoken, I think, to administration, and they were okay with me being the next head coach. And so I didn't think that he was going to step away. When someone says sometimes they want to step away, sometimes they, in a few weeks, they come back and they say, well, maybe, I stepped away too soon or whatever. So I wasn't thinking about anything at that particular time. But then when he called me and said he wanted to talk to me, then that was when I said, oh, what does he want to talk about? And then once I got there, he was saying, that I was going to be the next head coach. And I thanked him for the opportunity and whatever he did to get me to this point. And so I coached, almost all these kids, at the JV level, a lot. Some kids came from other schools, but I had been with most of these players at the JV level.
Let me jump in. And that's very important to point out is that Bayshore had some transfers. I mean, I think Andrick and Derek may classify as transfers, but they really came, sophomore or junior year. So that's sort of like you're coming in high school, really. The Bayshore actually, Kelvin was a difference maker, but Bayshore grew the program from the bottom up thanks to you and JV, the JJV coaches, the middle school. It was built from the bottom up. And then every few years you'd have one or two guys join the system, but it was always you guys and the system that made it run.
We understood that, and I think that we always felt honored when parents saw something that they wanted their kid to be a part of. I know your family saw something, and I believe that when you're doing things the right way, people notice. He used to say that, people are going to notice when you're doing the right things. And so we were doing the right things. Guys were getting along. They were being respectful, to officials. They were being respectful to each other. And so I think people see that as something that they want their kid to be a part of. And it doesn't necessarily work for everybody, but more times than not, it did work because they listened to coach. They were taught to listen to the coaches. And so that's what they did. They worked hard. If they had a little bit of an attitude, or they didn't, they felt that no one ever challenged coach. If you understand what I'm saying, they would listen to him and do those things because they knew that he had a successful career. When you have a successful career, they'll listen to you maybe a little bit longer than somebody who doesn't have a successful career. And he had put people in college. I was looking at something the other day. I mean, there's a lot of names here of people that he put in college. Okay. And, they had to stay out of trouble. Because you had Hugh Durham from Florida State that would come in the gym. Okay. He went on from Florida State to University of Georgia, where Brian Peterson went to play. You had people that come in the building that wouldn't have come in the building if they didn't think that you had a kid that was going to make their program better on and off the floor. So that was what was going on. And it was my job to make sure those kids understand where to be on a press, understand time and score, understand the last minute of the clock, don't shoot, understand you're up 10. You don't need to shoot threes when it's 3 minutes left in the game, So that's what the JV's coach job is. And then when we were working with the varsity the next game, because, we used to play back to back, he gave us the freedom to say, we only have 3 timeouts left. We only have 2 timeouts left. John has got 2 fouls, in the first minute of the game. And he didn't wave us off. He would listen.
Right.
So-and-so will probably do a better job than so-and-so. And he would listen. And he would respect that. So I always have a lot of respect for him because, he didn't have to do that. You got I think 5 or 6 or 7, Final Fours, couple state runner-ups. He don't have to listen to you. And I think our relationships with him were maybe a little different than other assistant coaches with head coaches. And I think that made the program as a whole. And I think he knew that would make the program as a whole, perform better and achieve more.
I completely agree. And there's a couple of comments on Facebook, and then we'll jump into your first season. Tree White says it was a tough ending to a great season, talking about 1994. And then Damon Allen has some really great words. He says, Coach Sam is a great godly man, mentor, example of character, and a great coach. And of course, Damon is one of your great players we're going to talk about here as we get to those seasons. Those are really nice words. Now, when we did the Freddie Tomasello episode, Freddie pointed out correctly, there's no coaching staff in the history of Hillsborough County was quite like what Coach Valdez had with you, Coach Sam, and Tom Dibble. He had on the sidelines men of character and distinction and basketball gravitas. You would go to 2 Final Fours on your own as a head coach. Dibble would go to a Final Four on his own as a head coach. There's no coaching staff anywhere remotely.
Right.
And bringing up Freddie's name, I want to ask one question.
Yes.
Did you ever have to break up a Fred Tomasello, Steve Rodriguez fight? And if so, were you accidentally struck anywhere on the body from the fight?
I don't remember being struck, but I remember lots of fights between you and him. You guys were 2 of the most intensely competitive people I've seen, and especially in a practice. And again, that was what Coach, he didn't want fighting in practice, but he wanted guys to compete. And you had no chance of beating a lot of these teams if you weren't going to get on the floor and compete. I know we're getting ready to get into 94, 95. I remember JoJo and John and Horrible. I think we went over to Plant City one year.
Right.
And boy, that was an amazing game from a guard standpoint. I mean, you had some of the quickest guards in the county at that time on the floor. Obviously we were private school and they were public school, but you saw guys, break a press by themselves. You had guys that were trapped temporarily, but will find their way out. You had guys that were able to get to the rim against, almost anybody. And get
you believe, this is a question, that team, the 82 to 85 team, which we call affectionately the original gangsters. You believe that's a good Western Conference team. It may not be the best Western Conference team. It ain't the worst. You believe it could have competed in the Western Conference, right?
Well, I agree. And I think that the difference between maybe who we would play on a regular basis and the Western Conference was the size. You would have most times on these Western Conference teams, you would have at least 2 to 3 guys back in the day that were 6'6" or above, at least minimum 3 guys. And every once in a while, you might have a Dwayne Shensis, or you might have like somebody even, getting close to 7 foot. But that was, later on with Frank Vining and Brandon. But, that was really like the difference. It was the post play and not the perimeter play. So that would probably be the thing that would make it difficult. But that night, everybody kind of pitched in, and, he used to tell our guards to get, whatever the number he used to use, get a few rebounds. You're expected to get a few rebounds. If you can get 2 or 3, you can get 2 or 3. I mean, he left no stone unturned when it came to, teaching us how to win. Maybe you can get a rebound. We don't have any 6'7" guys out here right now. Or if somebody gets, in foul trouble or something like that, then, you guys still have a responsibility to help out on the boards. So that would be the difference, since you brought that up. But those were the things that we learned.
Yeah, you mentioned the size. I mean, that team also had Bernard Staley, and that's one of the great what ifs if Bernard had returned for his senior year. But let's move forward on your coaching career and talk about 94, 95. That team goes down in history. I don't have with my notes here a lot of notes about the game, so I'm hoping you'll share a lot with us. I remember Orangewood Christian at home, which was a loss, but they were ranked in the top 5. I remember that team playing one of the most difficult schedules I can ever remember Bayshore playing in terms of night in, night out ranked opponents in 1A through 3A. But I mostly remember the absence of Tree, White, and Andrew Polito were a significant factor in that team. So tell us about your memories of 94, 95, and we're certainly going to get into the miracle at Ramey.
Well, a lot of ups and downs, but coming into the season, you're coming from a Final Four where you almost were contending for a state championship. You have a few people that were returning. From that team, I think Bo, Jed, John Blocker, Jonathan Fielder, they all, were coming back from that. And so your expectations are high because of the DNA that I mentioned earlier. You're thinking about, I need to get this team playing well by district time. I need to, play well during district time. Obviously, have a few breaks, not have any injuries, not have any major things happen. And then maybe we can get back to the situation that we were in the previous year. Well, the year didn't start out that way. We lost two starters, basically, with Tree transferring to King. And Polito, I think, withdrew and went to Plant, I think. And so those were two major things to happen when you have any team where you got two starters that, were going to be your leaders, and then things happen and then they're not there anymore. So we still had a good team. We had guys that worked hard, that really wanted to win, and had seen what the previous team had done. So that was the mindset that we kept. I think you were talking about the schedule. We played Orangewood Christian twice, Jesuit, Eatonville, Wymore Tech, St. Pete Catholic. We played them 3 times because we played them once in a Christmas tournament. We lost 2 out of 3. At the end of the year, we won. We lost to Temple Heights twice, which used to never happen. But that was only because they had they're probably one of their best teams ever playing.
Yeah.
And our depth was not where it had been in the past, and so we had lost. We had 4 to 6 losses by 8 points or less. So in my mind as a coach, you're still saying, we're right there. We need to rebound a little bit better. We need to turn the ball over a little bit less. I was a little bit stubborn because my last year as a JV coach, I think we were 17-1.
Right.
And I had the type of personnel that could press, the majority of the game. And with Tree in the back, to block those shots and things like that, then that was like, my mindset going in. We could play pressure defense. And then, he can handle anybody that gets close to the rim. And from that, we can get out and run with the rebounds and so forth. And, we had enough guard play for that. But without those guys, I probably was still trying to do that a little too much. And as we got through the season, toward the end of the year, you're starting to play teams a second time. So you're starting to give them a little second look. Also, what Coach taught us, second half of the season, you're trying to do some things differently. And so we did that. We played more zone. We pressed less. I think our ball movement improved. I thought we turned the ball over a little bit less. And, we started to play well. We killed Lakeland Christian twice. We beat them by 26 and 46, 46 at home, 26 at their place. And so, we didn't play well enough to get a top seed, but I think we were third. We were third seed that year going into district.
Right.
And so, of all places that have the district tournaments at Lakeland Christian. And, Lakeland Christian was, kind of like on the upswing. They started playing better, had a couple kids that could shoot the basketball. And so, you're saying it's at Lakeland Christian. We played well there before. I think we're going to be okay. You look at the bracket, and then we had won our game versus Vanguard in the semi, and then who we had beat 2 times before that. And then you see Tampa Baptist, which was the number 1 seed, losing the semi. So you're playing Lakeland Christian in the district final, and you're saying to yourselves, we won by 26 and 46. This is my thinking, but you don't say that to the kids. You don't say that to the kids. We need to do these things, right? So you're thinking that we could play a 4 game, still win by 10. If we stay out of foul trouble, not have anything crazy happen, like people get on fire and make 4 or 5 threes and that type of thing. So we got behind. They shot the ball really well. Like I said, they were on an upswing. They were at home. You got the crowd. And, we were playing catch up most of the night, but we did catch them in the fourth quarter. It was a tie ball game. And then the ball went out of bounds. The ball was under their basket, and we gave up an easy basket under them. But we still had 20-something seconds left. We drew something up, and we had like 3 shots in order to win the game. And I think the last shot kind of rolled around and came out. So we lost in the district, and that was a big blow because that broke the string. I think we had won 6 straight.
Right.
So in my mind, because, high school kids, they're not thinking about, the past. So, I did not want to break that string, okay? But, we just didn't play well. We really missed those kids. I think that we didn't rebound as well as we should have. And so
it's really important to point out that you said it, and I need to make sure that you get credit for the adjustments you made to deal with all of the things. And it wasn't just the loss of Tree and Polito. You had injuries, you had some illness, you had all kinds of things that impacted the season. And it's like a first-year coach, maybe you get 1 or 2 problems. You got like a career's worth in your first season. And the personnel you had John Blocker, you had Scott Cronin, Bo Heinley could shoot the 3, you had Damon and Jed underneath. And forgive me, we might forget some names, guys. In my case, it's because
Fielder was still there too.
Can't forget Fielder. Forget Fielder.
Mm-hmm.
So you had great personnel, but great challenges and adversity. So those things are going to happen when you face a team a third time. Doesn't matter, you blew them out.
Right.
They're coming. They don't suit up just to suit up. They're coming to play. So that was going to be a tough game. One more thing, and I'll let you keep going. John Blocker says, Coach Sam, you had the better blocker. Want to make sure we get that out there. So we lose district, which was disappointing, but again, very difficult season. And it's really great that we're still in the postseason. So we still have a shot. Tell us how it keeps going from there.
Well, this is what happened. We find out we have to go to Keswick to play. And Keswick had a great year. They had a great year. They played well. They didn't play the schedule that we played, but they had a great player. His name was Michael Della Vega.
Yeah.
The guy could really shoot a basketball, okay? And he had played for him, I think, for 4 years. I know my 3 years he was there. That was his sophomore, junior, and senior year. I don't remember if he played much his freshman year. Well, he scored over 2,000 points in his career. So he definitely played 4 years. And so he was quick. He handled the ball well. He shot the 3. He shot the floaters. He made his free throws. He was a great player. And so we had scouted them, and again, they were writing articles about Della Vega. And so I said,
Coach, sorry. Mike Blocker just said, like I said before, John Blocker is the best guard to lead Bayshore to an 18 and 19 season. So we have a sibling rivalry going on right now.
Sorry, I know, and it's going to continue to go on. We'll get to that. We'll get to that. Those guys are incredible. But I will say that I did not want him. I did not want him to have a 30 or 40 point game. So, we made sure that we had, we put Bo on him, Scott some, John some. We just really wanted to make sure that he didn't beat us. And so I think he still got, 20 or something like that. But I took that press off. We stayed closer to the basket. Everybody rebounded as a team. We made some plays down the stretch, and, we ended up winning by a few points. And so just really happy to be moving on over at their place. There was always a rivalry going on. I don't want to be negative. But they kind of look down their nose at us a little bit.
Isn't it crazy? Isn't it crazy that they looked down on us, and we're saying, You've lost 39 of the last 41 times you played us.
Anyway, I really hated that. And, it was one of those things where, we had, you mentioned earlier, there were parents that wanted their kids to be a part of the program and kids would come, but I did not want to lose to them. So, we had the boxing one, we went to the boxing one, we stayed close to the Vega, we made it tough. And so the kids came together, they played well. And so we made the plays down the stretch that we needed to make. We ended up winning that game. So now you get past the regional, and now you're getting into that next round, and you're in the regionals. And then at that time, the state, I don't know if it was just Class A or everybody, but they would choose a site for the regional to be held in. Okay.
Right.
And I think it was I think Everglades City, Bradenton Christian, Lakeland Christian, and Bayshore. Now, Lakeland Christian had just won the district. Okay. You would think that would be where the regional site was. So this is where divine intervention comes in. Okay. The regional tournament is at Bayshore. Okay. Right. So while you look at this, the letter comes or whatever, and I think Volpe told me, and I was like, are you sure? He's like, yeah, we're going to be hosting the regional. So inside yourself, you say, we're playing some of our best basketball.
Yes.
I think we're going to be in good shape. We don't play Lakeland Christian in the regional semi. We play Everglades City, who had a great player at that time. So our guys felt very good about that, felt very good about having a home game, even though we lost the district. So that energy just came to the floor, and we were to get past Everglades City pretty easily. And so now you're one game away, and our guys just didn't want to be denied, as we move on to Bradenton Christian. Bradenton Christian had a great program, had good players, had good coach. And,
they were 23-7, I think, something like that coming into the game. They were ranked in the top 10. They were an emerging program. They had upset us in 92, and what anybody, if you put a betting line on 1A basketball, it would have been like a 40-point favorite in 92, and they upset us. So they had a real program and real players who were committed to their program and had success. And they were coming in because of their ranking, 23-7, whatever. They would be the favorite, if you were to have a betting line. So you're playing great basketball, but you're facing a very difficult opponent.
Yes, very difficult opponent. They had played, a quality schedule. They played, I think some of those 7 losses were, against bigger schools, very competitive. Right. And so there was someone, you definitely had to respect. We watched them play, and, they were good. They had a couple guys that are around 6'3", 6'4", that were solid players. And so, you go into a game like that and you're saying, man, they're going to really bring it. They're really trying to get to Lakeland. They're trying to get their program to the level that we had gotten the program to. You got us coming in. We want to make up for everything that happened in the regular season. One of the things about losing players at the beginning of the year is the guys that are still there, they grow and develop over a period of time. And that's what happened. Bo Heinley and those guys, Damon, who was only a sophomore at the time, really started being able to contribute on the boards and scoring around the basket. You had Kirby that was great around the basket. Fielder that was great around the basket. All those guys were selfish. John was great getting us into offense. Yeah,
John Blocker was the best. John Blocker at that time, in my view, that year and then his senior year, was one of the best point guards in Hillsborough County. You had all of the pieces, and you're now bringing it all together. I want to share another Facebook post. Freddie Tomasello says, Coach Sam is a great coach and a great person, ! So you go into the third quarter against this team that they think it's their year, and they're up 38.
Yes.
They're up 38-25 early in the third quarter, and you call timeout. I don't know if you remember what happened in the timeout, but guide us into the final moments. it's not just Bo Heinley's shot. There's all kinds of things that go into the final moment. Tell us what's happening in that third quarter.
Well, what you're trying to do is you're trying to cut into the lead. You know, you're trying to put some stops together. You're trying to get a good shot every time down the court and not turn the ball over. Those types of things. We're trying to go inside to our big guys. Hopefully they can get something going. And they were able to get something going. They were able to get some, shots around the basket. We started getting some offensive rebounds. We started holding them to one shot. And so it was sort of like a slow thing that began to build as we moved toward the end of the game. As we are toward the end of the game, our one play I remember was, I think we shot and missed, and they got out ahead of us. And Damon Allen, who he hadn't played much that game. He played really well against Everglades City, but the guys that were out there were playing well, so we stayed with them. But at that particular time, I felt that he would give us a defensive, push. So he got in the game and he chased the kid down and he blocked his shot. And
Are you talking about, is this, so I want to skip because we're almost towards the end of this game, because Damon's block is the crucial moment that sets up the final possession. So like you said, we've got great game out of Fielder, great game out of Bo. I mean, Bo was nailing threes in the second half.
Kirby, full quarter, big, huge.
Kirby, double-digit rebounds, great performances. But people forget before the moment that you're about to tell us about.
From David. Yes. And that was one of those effort plays that, again, you try to emphasize and encourage them to do those types of things in practice. And, it came full circle for him where he really did not want to lose. And so he chased the kid down and blocked his shot. They had an inbounds play and we were able to keep them from scoring. And so
you call timeout with about 6 or 5, get it up to half. Go ahead and lead us through because there's 2 timeouts, one in the backcourt with about 6 seconds. Go ahead. I'm interrupting. Sorry.
And then, I think John brought the ball across half court. We were able to get the sideline, timeout right there. And I mean, it was a play that we had run a million times over the years. Coach would have a stack on ball side, and then away from the ball, there would be, players in rebounding position. And I decided to, instead of having Bo Heinley on the ball side, to move him to the opposite side of the court. Because if you run these things over a period of time, people start to kind of figure it out what you're trying to do. And so he's left-handed, right? So I felt that he would have a better chance of catching the ball if he went to the other side of the court and ran from the other side of the court and kind of came off a little double screen with the bigs. So that's what happened. We told him to do that. He wanted that shot. You can tell he wanted that shot. He had put the time in. And
you remember what you told John Blocker in that huddle?
I don't remember what I told him, but aside from telling the team that we were going to have Bo Heinley start on the opposite side of the court and come to this side, the directions were obviously to look for Bo coming from the opposite side of the court to the near side of the court.
What John says that you told him to do, which is brilliant. And of course, you look young, but both of us are old. So we don't remember. But John says that you told him in the huddle to throw the ball down the sideline out of bounds so that any deflection should not take any time off. So Bo could catch it by reaching over the out of bounds line, but no one else could. I mean, that's a brilliant detail that went into the success of that play.
Right. And it was something that I saw Coach do as well. I saw him make adjustments in set plays. There were set plays that were run, and he would make little adjustments. And, that was something that I felt would be suited to him. He's a senior. I believe that he's going to have a chance of making the shot. And it was a really tough shot. He was a left-hander. But he's a kid that was in the Final Four the year before. So he had the body language in the timeout that I'm going to make something happen because I've been on fire all throughout the fourth quarter. So that's something you see and you recognize when you're sitting them down on the bench, is you do see body language, and you see guys that are comfortable in the moment, and have guys that are not comfortable in the moment. So he was ready for the moment. And so when he came off that sideline, yes, I want him to make the pass that only Bo could catch. I didn't want the ball, stolen or whatever. So it just worked well. Those kids that played together, they had been through so much. It was something that they had done throughout the year, run these plays, trust each other. And so, he could have not passed it to him. He could have passed it to somebody else, but he respected him as a player. So he gave him that basketball as he came off. And then Bo had an up and down year. I know everybody sees they were nice. He didn't shoot well. They were nice. He didn't play well. I think there were times during the year he felt pressure in terms of, we're missing these two kids. I need to get this team to the next level. This is just my opinion. But, that was where he played. That's the way he played. But everybody saw it, understands. He caught the basketball. He moved to his strong hand. He was able to shoot the ball falling away. And the ball goes off the glass and in. And, everybody goes nuts. And so, you're just really happy. The emotions flow because, you work so hard. A week ago, maybe in the back of your mind, this may not be our year. We didn't win the district to a team that we could have killed, in my mind. But you keep believing, you keep seeing the hard work, you keep seeing them practice hard, you keep saying, we're going to do these things, and they go out and do them. And you don't see them questioning, so you don't question, what these guys are going to do when it's time to play. We didn't see rankings. We didn't think about the great season that Brady Christian had. We were thinking about getting, well, at that time it was Tallahassee. So they had moved the state tournament from, Tallahassee to, to Lakeland. Jacksonville to Lakeland to Tallahassee, then back to Lakeland. That is still at now. So I was so happy for him to make the shot because he really put a lot into, the team. He really wanted the team to be successful. I was really happy for John that he made the pass that needed to be made so that he could be successful. Because I believe sometimes the pass is just as important as the shot. Yeah. And so just happy for all those guys. Some of the other guys that played that were not major guys that got minutes. There were times throughout the year that Josh Neal played well. There were times, David Cordovas. Some of the other guys that didn't play as much, you're happy for them too, because it's their first Final Four too, just like mine. It wasn't the first Final Four for everybody, but these are things that the guys are going to remember the rest of their lives. And you're just happy that it happened for them.
That's exactly right. Those are such wonderful words. That I got a memory from that was from a previous show. We voted that game, the Miracle at Ramey, as the greatest game in Bayshore history. There are so many great players and great teams. And for a small school in Florida, it's really unbelievable, quite frankly, which is why we're doing these podcasts. We want to make sure the story is told. But that was voted number one. What really struck me was in the newspaper the next day, in the Bradenton or Sarasota Herald, whatever it was, Bradenton coach, and I'm misquoting it. I should have brought the exact quote, but it was something like, I guess as the clock was winding down, we looked up at those banners and we just weren't ready for that moment. And so the banners or something did too. So, that's just the greatest moment for those kids, as you said. And of course, for you as a head coach, your first year. Yes. There's great video if anybody wants to see on the Alumni YouTube page of that game. But if you don't want to sit through the whole game, just go to the fourth quarter, check that out, and certainly check out the post game where you see the celebration. I think you're laying on the floor at one point. Were you laying on the floor?
Yes, I was very, very happy because I just really wanted to. I had a dream too. I wanted to win a state title myself. Okay, because you go into, it's in the DNA. It's something that you want to do at some point in your career, and being 3 games away, you're right there. So, you're just happy for the kids. You just look, you're happy for the kids. I was happy that they didn't lose their last, home game. Going to whatever, graduation, and, they lost their last home game. You just really want the kids to, go and be a part of and play, some of the best teams in the state. And that's what you want to have happen. And we're just fortunate that it did happen for them. So very, very, very happy and elated for them.
That's really good. And I got a couple more Facebook comments. This one's from Ernie Matos. It's so awesome to hear Coach Sam talk. Coach Sam prepared you for varsity basketball and for life. Love you, Coach Sam. So that's from Ernie, and that's really great to hear.
Yes.
So the Final Four, I want to skip forward because number one, I don't want to keep you all night, and there's so much still to cover. The Final Four ended like a lot of Final Fours for Bayshore. We go, it's a great moment, but we run into I think it was Malone juggernaut.
Yes.
They were in a series of like 6 straight state titles. Basically, they were the Miami Senior High School of the 90s.
Yes.
Because Miami Senior had a dominant program like that. I think Hillsborough maybe in the 50s, 40s, way back in the old days, probably was like that. Very rare to see that type of program, and they were in the middle of it. So you accomplish that goal. Basketball is unique in that at the high school and college level, Final Four means something. So usually you think of schools in high school, you're playing for your district title. Similar schools, similar population, similar geography. That's what most schools play for. But Bayshore Christian and Sam Lanier plays for Final Fours and state titles. You achieve that goal with a great Bayshore roster. You come back and feel free to talk about it, but I'd like to skip forward to the 97 year. 95-96 is another district title for Bayshore. Your first 26-9, something like that, 25-9. Another great season.
26-10. Yeah.
26-10. Another great season with great players. So the Coach Sam era is rolling. Final Four, district title, 20 plus wins. And then we get into year 3, 96-97. You have an extraordinary roster, a great season against public school teams, higher classification teams. This is one of my favorite teams because that district title was extraordinary to me with the Brandenburg executioner era and that team, and then of course that double overtime game. So share with us your thoughts moving into the 96-97 Bayshore team.
Well, starting real quick with the previous year, Polito returned to school. Right. So he returned to Bayshore for that middle year. I'll never forget the look in his eye. He was at the district championship game that we lost to Lakeland Christian the year before. When we were walking to the locker room, he was in the stands. And I just happened to notice him, and I never forget the look in his eye. So that next year, they just, Tom Brandenburg came. We just had a lot of hardworking players. Hugh Thomas was going into his second year. Fielder was in his 4th year. Damon Allen was in his 3rd year. John was in his 3rd year starting. Elijah was a beast inside. He really did all the things you want a big man to do. Josh Nunnally was incredible defensively. Latanzi would come in and spell John and handle the ball.
Yeah, I shouldn't have forced you to jump forward. The 26-10 team in 96 that won the district title, I think that was Fielder's. Was that Fielder's senior year? He didn't play that 90s. Yeah. So
that was 95-96. Yes. So that was 96-97. Fielder's not in there. I'm sorry. All those other guys,
But Fielder had a great career. We need to point out John Fielder is a Bayshore legend. His brother Reggie Sanford was a Bayshore legend. So his career ends with you as a district champion, and that needs to be said. So forgive me for interrupting if you want to jump back into 96.
Yes. But we had kids that had been there. They had been around. They had played, some of the best teams in the state over the summer. We always played these competitive schedules. The district championship, they were a great team. They really knew what you needed to do every night. They we had a pretty good rotation in there. We had good depth. And so, if a guy picked up a couple fouls sometimes or needed a break, we had other guys that came in and, could, make.
John Blocker was in foul trouble in that district title game against Keswick and De La Vega again. So I do remember that.
Yes. And but I had who else? I wrote down there was another person that I really, George Suarez. Suarez contributed as well. We had a lot of guys that really understood what you needed to do to be successful as a basketball team. They listened well. They, tried to execute. They would make little adjustments in games sometimes, whether I would say it or not. They would communicate with one another. They were great communicating with one another. And so you find out that the district championship is going to be at Keswick, and it's De La Vega's senior year. And so, you're saying to yourself, we got to go over here and be ready to play. And we won the district, last year. They're going to they're going to feel like it's their year. And we played the Bucks and won again, and I did not want that kid. Real short story. I think it was the year. No, it was that year we were playing them in the regular season. And I called I think I called John or somebody over to talk to them from the sideline. De La Vega came over. I think I was talking to Hugh Thomas. De La Vega came over and stood next to Hugh Thomas while I was talking, and he didn't say anything. And then when Hugh Thomas walked away to try to communicate what we were doing to the rest of the team, De La Vega asked me, he says, "When are you going to take this boxing one off of me?" I couldn't believe he was talking to me, number one. And secondly, I said, never.
Right.
So I did not want those guys. Those guys hounded him, and they didn't play dirty. They was just in your face. They were around you. They didn't let you catch the ball. They didn't let you get in spots where you wanted to get. And so Andrew and Hugh Thomas and Josh, those guys were even who else? Calvin Cummings. Calvin Cummings was another player who really liked competition. He really liked competition. And once you said that guy needed to be stopped, one of those guys would usually do it. So we go to Keswick, to make a long story short, we go to Keswick, and you got all this emotion in the building and so on and so forth. But we had been to camp. I think we went to Central Florida that summer. We had played Orlando teams, Miami teams. Nobody was gonna, intimidate this team. Brandenburg was so hungry. I know you've written about him and said things about him, but he was over at Bloomingdale and he was really unhappy. His family was unhappy with him being there. I think they were looking for, a school with a Christian environment. And so he was really hungry. He was really hungry. And I think he had broke his wrist or something early in the year. And so you're really concerned about your depth, because this guy would do all the dirty work. He would rebound the ball. He would foul guys. Like no layups. Not dirty, not dirty. And
Brandenburg is the executioner. Yeah, Brandenburg, he ran suicides in string shoes. I mean,
yes.
The dude was hardcore.
I remember taking him home many times. He was very respectful, and I could tell that he was appreciative of the situation that he was in. And I think that he wanted to make the most. He wanted to have the best season he could have, because he was unhappy at the school he was at before. And he was just, he was a solid player along. He stepped right in with all those other guys. So, but yeah, we beat him. We beat him over there. And someone asked me about cutting the nets down, and I was like, well, I'm not sure you can do that.
No,
but I think they went ahead and did it anyway.
We did it. Yeah, we did it, and we weren't supposed to.
I think I turned around. I was trying not to look, and that type of thing.
But, you mentioned, I mean, Calvin Cummings, Hugh Thomas, Damon Allen, Elijah Piazza, Latanzi, Polito. That 97 team was so good. And that's going to lead me to the final game question I have. We win the next two games, and we're now hosting the
Yes.
regional final. It used to be called sectional final. It's now called regional final against a school
Yes.
called Miami Northwest Christian with a coach by the name of Tony Pujol. Tony Pujol is now a college coach. That was the first Miami Northwest Christian team that would win a state title, and they would win 4 or 5 over a 7-year period. This was
Yes.
the first one, and they're quoted in the paper. Pujol is quoted in the paper. In order to win a state title, it had to go through Tampa Bay Shore. Coach, I'm going to give you a stat that you're not going to want to hear. We were like 24 of 49 from the free throw line in that game.
Yeah.
Now, when you hear that, does it make you want to stab a fork in your leg?
It's hard. Hey, you say to yourself, it's hard to win under those circumstances.
Right.
And when you look at all the time that we spent shooting free throws and having guys run if they didn't make situational things and so on and so forth, it was something that got us into our press. And
Right.
It was really frustrating because it wasn't that we were trying to outrun them. I just felt that we were deeper than them. And, I thought that they had a very strong 6, but I thought we went 8, 9 deep. And I really felt that, no matter what was going to go on in the game, we were going to be able to pull it out. But you don't think about 15, 16, 17, 18 free throws being missed in a game. To me, that's opportunities to put points on the board. And that's also opportunities where you feel like, even if we didn't press, sometimes we would change defenses off of free throws and things like
Right.
that. So we weren't really able to make the necessary changes at times to make it harder for them to score, which is how we got to that point of having a great season. So it was a little frustrating. But the kids play so hard. They no matter what happened, they were up, they were down. They never quit. They never thought that they wouldn't win. Even when we got down, we came back in the fourth quarter and we were right there. That kid stepped to the line and made a couple free throws for them to tie it up, I think, to take us into the first overtime. And then
there's so many moments. I mean, there's a moment where we missed 2 free throws under 10 seconds, but our guy gets the rebound and sticks it back. There's a moment in the first overtime where we're up to inbounding at where we may not even have to inbound. It was like under 5 seconds and we turn it over and they lay it in.
Yes.
Then in the second overtime, we're down 5 and somebody that shouldn't make a 3 makes one for us. And so it was a sellout crowd. You had seniors, you had guys going Division I for them. You had Brandenburg would go to Florida Atlantic. You had Elijah play Division II. It was an extraordinary basketball game in the history of the city of Tampa that you were a part of. And most people consider that the state title game because they blew out the Final Four team and the other team they beat in the Final Four. That really was the 2 best teams in Florida, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I think that with our depth and our experience and, there weren't too many situations. That's actually why, in that particular game, nobody was really rattled. I never saw anybody flinching coming to the sideline during the timeout. It was just, what are we going to do? Or, we're going to do this. And so that was another thing I learned from Coach. You never speak to your team like you're worried. You always tell them what, we're going to do after this timeout, what we're going to do after this situation. And as long as, you convey that confidence, then the kids will play confidently in the situation. So, and you heard that when you play. So I think that that was the reason why no matter what was going on with them, we still were right there.
Right.
We had as much experience as they had. I'm sure they played a competitive schedule, probably played up, obviously, with the bigger schools and that type of thing. And he was a great coach. He was a class act. I think the next year I saw him and he was very cordial, very respectful. How you doing, coach? And so on and so forth. And they look like us. That's what they look like. They look like
very good.
That they had put, the time in, the effort in. They had a coach that put the time in and the effort in, had good relationships with their players, no talking to the ref and things like that. So that's who they look like. And that's why he went on to, have the success that he had. He didn't have kids that were coming in the program, even down the road after kids were graduating, kids that didn't have, the team in mind. And so they had to make sacrifices in order to have this level of success, stay out of trouble, stay eligible. And that's who they look like. They look like us, and Malone as well, so that was the thing. When they put on that uniform, they kind of knew what it was about. They knew that the expectations were high for the season. And I mean, if you didn't have high expectations, you just, people would see it right away.
Right.
And they would say something to you. Doesn't this matter to you? What are you doing, or whatever? So that was a tough loss. That was a tough pill to swallow. That was Hugh Thomas's last game. That was Andrew Polito's last game. That was Damon's last game. Elijah returned, but that was a tough loss because those kids had been told from the time they got on the floor 3-4 years previous, state championship, and we came up short. But I can't say enough for the effort that they put in, the time they put in. It's why you can walk out of a locker room and, hold your head high. You're hurt. You're gonna, you want to hug people, and, you feel like you disappointed them. But over time, deep inside, I gave it everything I had. And that was something that happened. And, as for me, I was the most fortunate guy to have a group like that, because many times, you don't have guys that buy into what you're saying. They are already thinking about college. They're already thinking about, in some cases, probably even the NBA, so our guys were always thinking state championship, then college after that. And so, and in almost all those cases, they wanted to graduate, which is the most important thing of all. So they all would do that. They were all, they made their parents proud, which is something also as a coach that you're hoping that what they do on this court, is going to do. They're going to make their parents proud. And I always felt like they were giving their kids to me, so the only thing I could do while I had them was treat them well, treat them with respect, challenge them, that type of thing. So that's what we tried to do.
Those are wonderful words, and really well spoken, and greatly appreciated, I know, probably by those kids, now grown men, and their parents. I don't remember I remember some tears in that locker room. It was almost more shock that it had ended.
Mm-hmm.
And of course the Bayshore story would go on, but you would move on to bigger things at King High School, a large public high school where you would be the longtime coach there.
Mm-hmm.
And once again go to a Final Four with King. So we
Mm-hmm.
can just reiterate how unprecedented the coaching staff at Bayshore was in the early 80s, to have 3 future Final Four coaches and a guy who would do it at 2 different schools. That's really, like Herman, do it at 2 different schools. That's really unbelievable. Coach,
Mm-hmm.
we've kept you an hour and a half, and it's been a wonderful story. And
Mm-hmm.
I have so many stories with you. We played Hoop It Up, went to Jacksonville together with
yes, 2 years in a row.
Been together a long time. I would spend the night at your house, and your wife would take care of me when I was sick. Wonderful love for you, and really miss you a lot. I miss being in Florida and being around you guys. So I just wanted to ask you if you have any last words you want to share with your former players. A lot of them, I mean, there's a lot of people watching, but usually people download it from YouTube, that sort of thing, over the next couple of days. What are your last thoughts for tonight's podcast with one another?
Well, I really enjoyed my 15 years there. I thought that, Coach definitely was trying to develop the program into one of the best basketball programs in the state. It was something that he carried from Robinson to Bayshore. When he asked me to come and coach over there, that was something I wanted to be a part of, because it was what he was teaching us over at Robinson. And then when I got there, I wanted to make sure that, I represent, him well, represent the school well, represent my family well. And that was, what I tried to do in the time there. And, even though it didn't end well, I still was able to move on to a new situation where, it was a new challenge, some changes for me to go from a private school to a public school. But, if anything, the message is, no matter what, keep going, believe in yourself, believe in, doing the right things, treating people right, treating people with respect, and, good things will happen to you. Put God first. Coach used to always tell us, put God first. and everything else will fall into place. He would say, God first, family second, school third, and basketball was always fourth. And that's something you heard, and that's something everybody else heard. So, those things can also take you into life where, once you leave the basketball court, you should still have some of those same priorities. And as long as you do that, then, things are going to go well for you. So very appreciative of my time. Very happy for these young men. I've seen a lot of them. I'm in contact with, quite a few of them. Damon's been over to the house. Jed wants to have lunch after COVID. I communicated with Scott Crone a couple of times. Polito, George Suarez, I'm connected with all those guys on Facebook. I see them, with their families and everything. And, it's a proud moment for me, as I know it's a proud moment for Coach with the players that he coached years back. So that's all we've been trying to do, get these guys to the next level. And, happy to see them reach that level and, move on to, big and better things down the road.
And you can see it in the love that your players have for you. You see it here online tonight. Mrs. Volpe wants to make sure that you know that the Volpes are watching. So Volpe, good to see you, or good to see that you're watching. And Mike Blocker says, Coach Sam was more influential in our lives than you'll ever know. And Damon Allen, of course, has wonderful things again to share about you. So your players loved you, and obviously, because you're such a great man, and we can't thank you enough for taking the time to share with us tonight your story, which is part of the Bayshore story. And it's been a great time together. Thank you very much, Sam.
Well, thank you very much for having me. And I'm proud of what you guys are doing on this, on the podcast. You guys are keeping us connected, and, we're able to, communicate with one another. And I think that's very important because we had such a, good relationship, the years that they played or coached with us. And, just keep doing what you're doing. If you have the time. I don't know how you have the time sometimes, Steve. Right. This guy's an attorney. So, that just speaks to your love of the game, love of Bayshore, and, love of, the guys you played with, and, your school. And, that's important for guys to see too. So,
yeah,
thank you.
Absolutely, Coach. I can't, when COVID is over with and I come down to Florida, we got to get together. So,
okay. Sounds good.
Great.
We got to find a couple of tapes. We got to find a couple of tapes.
Right. I'm going into your garage looking.
It's out there somewhere. It's out there somewhere.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you, Coach Sam. We'll talk to you soon.
Right.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, man. Talk to you soon. All right. Bye-bye. Bye.